day today.
I don't think so.
I've been watching. I spent several hours today watching the Prime Minister third withdrawal bill lose, meaning she brought the withdrawal bill up for a third time. It lost. Not just lost, she separated the withdrawal bill from the declaration of what the relationship between the European Union and Britain is going to be after. Meaning something that wasn't supposed to be split apart was split apart, because today was supposed to be the day that Theresa May and Britain left the European Union. Today is not the day that Britain leaves the European Union. In fact, Britain has found itself into more chaos. What do I mean by that is Britain has decided that it doesn't want a no-deal Brexit. By the same token, it can't choose a deal of Brexit at all. And this is after Parliament taking control and having these indicative votes where it chooses one item after the next. All of them were struck down. Meaning, even though Parliament says we can't leave this without a deal, simultaneously, there is no deal that Parliament can choose that it would agree to. So you can understand this is somewhat of a rough situation to be in. I was having a conversation with Gordon DeMack, and I've had this conversation with other people on whether or not this was intentional. Now, let me understand what I'm saying here. That there were elements of the UK that wanted to leave, meaning we want to get out of the European Union. But there were elements that didn't want to leave. And that the elements that didn't want to leave was conspiring in order to find ways to prevent the UK from leaving. They couldn't necessarily go against the referendum in this thing because the referendum is the public's will. You mean this glorious show of will of the public itself saying, this is what we want. Now, it's one thing when you have a representative government. They can always say the public wants X. Oftentimes, the public doesn't want X. But they can say that. And they can have a fake leaf of legitimacy in saying it because there's some people out there, some random guy that wants whatever that particular politician is espousing. But it's another thing entirely when the public itself, you ask the public, what do you want? And the public said, we want to leave. And you're stuck with the philosophical responsibility of getting the UK out. Public said thus. So what do you do if you can't go against the public will for political reasons? By the same token, you don't want to leave. Like, it doesn't drive you to get the UK out of the European Union. All things being equal, with your vote, you probably voted to remain. So what do you do? Now, there's some people that are coming out with the theory that Theresa May botched this on purpose. That she crafted a bill that couldn't get through Parliament intentionally because she wanted to get to a point where there will be just cause to revoke Article 50. That they could essentially put the kibosh on the Brexit process because they couldn't necessarily get it through. And that at a certain point, the public's will for any particular piece of legislation goes in the toilet if you spend 2 years debating on that very specific piece of legislation as if it was somewhat of an impossible task. You've worn the public down. Not so much that the public just completely changed its mind on this, but more so, they're just sick of it. Is it possible that what we're seeing here is a grand four-dimensional chess play in order to grind the wheels down where you can finally get to the point of either calling for another referendum or calling for a revocation of Article 50 entirely, and having public support for it to boot? I'm skeptical of this. I don't necessarily think immediately that this type of theory is more likely. I don't think that for several reasons, but for one main reason, you can have various people who are competing for different interests. And in competing for different interests, you have a certain outcome. The fact that the half of the public wanted Brexit and the other half didn't, almost nearly split in half, like 51 to 49, then it's not necessarily insane to see that will also expressed in Parliament. Meaning the public can barely make a choice, and Parliament is also in a situation where it can barely make a choice. That said, I don't know. I'm not behind the scenes. However, somebody who was behind the scenes, George Galloway, I've tried to get George Galloway on this show on multiple occasions, and usually he would say, "Hey, send me an email," and then when I send an email, I hear nothing else from him. This always bothers me because I always think, is there something flawed in me that is preventing this person from coming on the show? Usually, I wouldn't necessarily care. If Aaron Matei doesn't want to come on the show, I don't particularly care. Galloway, however, Galloway has informed my workable point of view of the world itself. And so if a person who's informed my workable point of view of the world looks at me in a condemnative way, then yeah, I feel some kind of way about it. Nevertheless, the guy's awesome. And he answers this very question of, is she doing this on purpose? I'm doing this video because I've heard multiple people ask this. I've seen it on people who I follow on YouTube who even come out and say, no, this is being done entirely on purpose because Theresa May doesn't want to leave. I'm going to let Galloway hit that. Galloway was behind the scenes. Galloway knows these people. Galloway would know.
Of course, the conspiracy theorist would be hard pushed to come up with a conspiracy which had worked just as perfectly as this one. As it happens, because I know the people involved personally, I think it's more a cock-up, a series of blunders and inadequacies that have led us to this particular pass. But in a way, it doesn't matter whether it was intended or whether it's a series of accidents. The British Parliament has betrayed the British people with grave consequences for British democracy, because more people voted for Brexit than have ever voted in Britain's history for anything or anybody, and they're not going to get it. And they're not.
The reason he's saying they're not going to get it is, for one, Parliament voted that they didn't want a no-deal Brexit, so they were trying to take that off the table. And there is no enthusiasm for a no-deal Brexit within Parliament. So that's off the table. By the same token, what does that leave you? And it looks like, because they can't get anything else through, people are thinking that they're going to find some way to cancel Brexit. They are believing that Brexit is not going to happen. Now, the European Union doesn't think this. The European Union is planning for a Brexit. And April 12th is the new date. And if they can't get something through Parliament by April 12th, they're not going to get another extension. I have no idea what's going to take place. The central question here, however, is not necessarily on what happens, is more so on the intentions of the individuals involved. George Galloway is right. He does know these people. And in knowing these people, he comes to the conclusion that no, this is not, this is not something they're planning to do. It's more like a series of cock-up and inadequacies. I would imagine he's saying inadequacies of the individual to do a particular task that has more to do with these failures and this inability to come to some kind of resolution to this than some kind of four-dimensional chess match where they're planning, plotting intentionally to just get the worst Brexit deal possible. So when they go to the public and say, "Here's your baby," and it's a screaming, deformed thing with one eye and, 10 toes or 12 toes. Who knows? I tend to believe Galloway on this, so I don't necessarily think there's a conspiracy behind it. But come to your own conclusions. But I would say listen to the guy who's been behind the scenes and that more likely knows. Let's see, 8 minutes. It's not bad at all. So I have additional videos that I want to do, so I will see you guys in a few. Don't forget to mention it was also the highest participation of any EU vote. Yeah, this is kind of my point of saying this idea of countermanding democracy itself. You have this glorious show of emancipatory political participation. And in this number of people voting with this level of enthusiasm, like literally like galvanizing the entirety of Britain in this kind of divisive election, to not listen to what it comes up with looks bad. It looks bad. And I do think it has consequences on whether or not people consider the country they're in a democracy or not. I think it matters. All right, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. We like to say even $1 helps, because even $1 does help. We're trying to get off of a dependence on YouTube and to be more dependent on the people who assist the channel. If you find yourself coming back here often, you find yourself hanging out with me often throughout the week, please consider some level of contribution to the content itself. It does help. I'll end it here. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys in 30 minutes or so. Thanks all.